Hi everyone. In this video, we'll be exploring why no two fingerprints are exactly alike, why a day is divided into 24 hours, and whether there are any metals that don't conduct electricity. Ever wondered why humans have fingerprints and why each person's fingerprints are unique? Firstly, fingerprints were not created for the police to identify criminals. Their primary purpose is to increase grip when humans grasp objects and enhance tactile sensitivity. Identity identification is just a secondary function of fingerprints that humans came up with later when they discovered that each person's fingerprints are unique and do not change throughout their life. You may have heard somewhere that the probability of two people having identical fingerprints is only 1 in 64 billion. It sounds convincing, but there's a problem. Most people's fingerprints in the world have never been cross-checked, meaning we don't really know how many people in the world have matching fingerprints. In fact, the 1 in 64 billion probability is just an estimate. It was calculated 132 years ago by British scholar Francis Galton. First, he collected a large number of fingerprints and divided them into different types such as loops, whorls, and arches. Then, he analyzed the specific ridges of the fingerprints and calculated the probability of each feature's appearance. Finally, he multiplied the probabilities of each individual feature together to get the number 1 in 64 billion. So, as you can see, that number is just for reference. And in fact, there have been many cases where people have been found to have matching fingerprints, or at least fingerprints so similar that machines, humans, or both cannot distinguish them. The most famous case occurred in 2004, when Brandon Mayfield, an American lawyer, was arrested on suspicion of involvement in the Madrid bombings. Although there was evidence that he was in the US at the time of the bombings in Madrid, Spain, the FBI insisted that he was the terrorist because his fingerprints were a 100% match with those on a bag containing an explosive device at the scene. The FBI was later embarrassed when it was revealed that what they claimed was a 100% match was simply a fabrication. In fact, there were up to 20 fingerprints that could have matched the terrorists, and Brandon Mayfield was just one of them. The difference was that Mayfield was the only one who was Muslim. The modern fingerprint identification process can be summarized as follows. The suspect's fingerprints are entered into an automated fingerprint identification system and compared to millions of fingerprints in a database which are taken when you apply for a national ID card. The computer analyzes detailed features, specific ridges, to search for matches. These results are then reviewed and evaluated by experts to ensure accuracy. In Brandon Mayfield's case, his fingerprints were so similar to those of the terrorist that they passed both human and machine evaluation, but they still didn't match.
Nope.
After all, fingerprints still seem to be unique. So why don't even identical twins or triplets almost never have matching fingerprints? The answer lies in how they are formed. Fingerprints, the ridges on the fingertips and toes, are formed randomly in the womb. The fingerprint formation process begins in week 12 of pregnancy and usually ends in week 28. At this time, some cells in the middle layer of the skin, called the basal layer, begin to grow faster than the cells in the inner layer of the dermis, or the outer layer of the epidermis. This increase in cells causes the skin to bulge and form folds. As the fingers develop, new folds and branches will form. There are countless things that can affect the final shape of a fingerprint as it forms, from the random position of the baby's fingers in the womb to the thickness of the amniotic fluid and the baby's movements in the womb. And since this whole process is a chain of random events at the cellular level, human fingerprints are generally always different. Have you ever wondered if there are any metals that don't conduct electricity? The 3 basic properties of metals are a shiny surface, good electrical conductivity, and good thermal conductivity. And since even poor conductors are still called conductors, the answer is no, there is no such thing as a completely non-conductive metal. And if you're not satisfied with that answer, then there's bismuth. It is a brittle metal that is silvery white when new, pinkish, when left in the air for a long time, and has a colorful iridescent sheen when heated. Bismuth is one of the least thermally and electrically conductive metals known. It conducts heat so poorly that it is used to make insulating materials.
What?
The electrical conductivity of bismuth is 770,000 Siemens per meter, while that of copper is 59,700,000 Siemens per meter. But before you start laughing at bismuth, remember that some of its compounds are used to treat diarrhea.
My God! I'm bleeding!
Speaking of electricity, many people mistakenly believe that gold is a better conductor than copper because they often see that the contacts of high-end expensive electrical devices are gold-plated. This is not the case. The electrical conductivity of gold is 41,100,000 Siemens per meter, while that of copper is 59.7 million, and that of silver is up to 62 million Siemens per meter. Thus, copper is 1.45 times more conductive than gold. However, silver is too expensive and copper is easily oxidized. Over time, copper wires that are directly exposed to air will be coated with a layer of copper oxide Q2O, which makes them very poor conductors. Gold is much more inert than copper. It is not attracted to oxygen, so gold is often plated onto copper parts that are directly exposed to air to prevent the formation of copper oxide. Ever wondered why a day has to be 24 hours and not 23 or 25 hours? While I couldn't find a specific name or person who decided this, I did find that the ancient Greek and Babylonian civilizations were the ones who standardized a day to have 24 hours and an hour to have 60 minutes. The concept of a 24-hour day originated in ancient Greece. Initially, they used sundials to divide the daytime into 10 hours. Then they added 1 hour to the beginning of the morning and 1 hour to the end of the day, giving us 12 hours of daylight. For nighttime, they observed 36 small constellations in the sky called decans, each rising sequentially from the horizon as the Earth rotated. Of these 36 constellations, 12 were always in the dark, marking 12 hours each night, and thus we have 24 hours each day. However, in ancient times, the length of each hour was not fixed, but varied according to the seasons of the year due to fluctuations in the Earth's rotation. It wasn't until the 14th century, when mechanical clocks appeared in Europe, that timekeeping began to become more standardized. Speaking of timekeeping, have you ever wondered why an hour has 60 minutes and a minute has 60 seconds? It seems that Greek scholars borrowed the Babylonian and Sumerian base 60 counting system to divide an hour into 60 minutes and a minute into 60 seconds. What are your thoughts? Please leave your comments below. As always, like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to receive the latest notifications. And now, goodbye, and see you next time.